When I say you can be free from thought, that doesn't mean that you are going to be thought-free. When people hear that, being free from thought, they then create this idea that they're never going to experience a thought ever again. And this really shows you how much we suffer our thoughts. And we only suffer our thoughts because we're resisting them. Being free from thought doesn't mean that you're never going to experience a thought ever again. It just means that you're free from suffering thoughts. The thoughts are still going to be experienced. Now, okay, there'll be far less thoughts than you are experiencing right now, especially if you're resisting thoughts. You'll find the more you resist thoughts, the more thoughts there are. It's like you're resisting the flow of thoughts, and thoughts naturally come and go. As long as you're resisting the flow of thoughts, then it's like they stockpile, and then they seem overwhelming. Remove the resistance, and thoughts naturally come and go. And that's what the experience is like when you're free from thought. Thoughts just come and go. And because you're not resisting the thoughts, you're not suffering the thoughts. Because you're allowing the thoughts to simply be, they just come and go, and they don't bother you. And because you are no longer giving them any importance and identifying with the thoughts, giving it all your attention, it's like they're not even there. They're in the background, and there's something that's in the foreground now. It's like the peace has moved from the background to the foreground, and the chatter of the mind has moved from the foreground to the background, you could say. It'd be like a group of friends that are gossiping in front of you, and you're close to them. But then when they move 10 feet away from you, it's like they're not bothering you as much. You can't really hear what they're saying. You're no longer interested in eavesdropping on their conversation. It has a similar feeling. So when people hear being free from thought, they then create this new thought about never experiencing a thought ever again. And that is not true. That's not true. It's that you're not suffering the thoughts. And because people are suffering their thoughts so much, they're longing for peace of mind. They're longing for peace. And you can start tasting that peace by just simply allowing the thoughts to be. You can start experiencing that peace of mind by simply allowing the thoughts to be. Right now, there's resistance. The opposite of resistance is allowance. By allowing the thoughts to be, you start experiencing more of the peace that you are. The mind is in conflict when there's resistance. And it's really the mind that's fighting with itself. See, thoughts just naturally arise and they fall. They come and they go. Thought one comes and goes. But when thought two says that thought one cannot be here, when thought two says that thought one shouldn't be happening, when thought two says thought one is good or bad, can you see what's happening? There's conflict. One thought is in conflict with another thought. One thought is arguing with another thought. One thought is judging another thought. One thought is at war with another thought. It's this conflict, this split in the mind, where one part of the mind is condemning another part of the mind. And it's because of the resistance. One thought is resisting another thought. And this creates the noise. It creates a whole lot of activity in the mind. And this is suffering. Suffering thoughts. Thoughts are just naturally happening. They're happening just as if you were sitting on a park bench, looking at the lake and seeing beautiful scenery and hearing the beautiful birds chirping. That's just happening. There's just some gentle waves in the lake. That's happening. The clouds are passing by. That's just happening. The birds are chirping. That's just happening. Kids in the park screaming, laughing, playing on the swings. That's just happening. Dogs barking. That's just happening. And then the thoughts are rising and falling. That's also just happening. Why is it that we put so much importance and so much attention on the thoughts when they're just happening like everything else in the experience? The thoughts are part of the experience. You experience thoughts just as much as you're experiencing the birds chirping, the breeze, the sun, the smell. Everything that you're experiencing is the experience. But when we give so much attention and importance and resistance to just one part of the experience, such as the thoughts, well, then we're excluding a part of the experience. And our true nature is all-inclusive. Our true nature has already included the entire experience. It doesn't exclude something and say this should not be here, but see that the sunlight, the warmth of the sun, the breeze flowing through your hair, the birds chirping, the clouds passing by, the waves in the water, the kids laughing, the dogs barking. This is all the experience. But then there's a thought that then says, whoa, this part of the experience, this other thought should not be here. This part of the experience has got to go. It's trying to exclude. It's resisting a part of the experience, which is then suffering. So the fastest way to quiet the mind, the fastest way to still the mind is allowance. Allowance is the key. Your whole life you've been resisting the thoughts. But see what happens when you simply allow them to be. By just allowing them to be, they still are experienced, but there's no resistance to the experience. It then is just part of the experience, just like the warmth of the sun and the breeze in your hair and the kids laughing and the dogs barking. It's just part of the experience. It's as if it blends in with everything. All because you're just allowing those thoughts to be. And you'll find that by simply allowing the thoughts to be, you're becoming more and more free from thought. Which again, does not mean that you do not experience thoughts. It's that you're free from the resistance of the thoughts. You're free from suffering thoughts. That the thoughts are still arising, but you're not identified with them. You're not judging them. You're not rejecting them. You're not resisting them. You're not at war with them. And you start noticing that there's far less conflict in the mind, and there's more peace that is experienced. And then what you start noticing is that this entire experience, the breeze, the warmth of the sun, the dogs barking, the kids laughing, the waves, the clouds, the sights, the smells, this whole experience actually starts being experienced as more peaceful. The entire experience starts changing, all because you're allowing thoughts to be. You start experiencing the peace that you are, the peace that is your true nature. And this peace feels like it comes from the background and starts moving to the foreground. And like I said, those thoughts that still arise, they're a little slower, they're less frequent, they're still there, but that actually moves to the background. So you experience more peace and less conflict. And it's something that you could say you practice, which is not really a practice because there's nothing to do to allow. Resistance is something that you do. Allowance is a non-doing. By allowing the thoughts to be, you're not doing anything. But by judging and criticizing and condemning and identifying and telling stories, all of that is something that you do. And it's all of that that is contributing to the suffering that you experience. Suffering thoughts. So being free from thought is actually effortless. Experiencing peace is effortless. Hopefully this helps. I'll see you in the next one.